In 1847, a young bride opened her wedding gift and screamed. Inside was a family tree, her family tree, the name of her new husband, right next to her own brother's name. But that wasn't the worst part. Every single son in the Cranley family for 200 years had married their own blood. What you're about to hear will make your skin crawl. This is the true story that one diary tried to bury forever. In 2019, demolition workers in rural Ireland were tearing down the old Cranley Manor. Built in 1640, the estate had been abandoned for decades. The family gone, vanished without explanation in 1891. But hidden behind a false wall in the library, workers found something that made them call the police immediately. A leather-bound diary, water, damaged, pages yellowed with age, and written on the first page in shaking handwriting. If you are reading this, then I have failed to destroy the evidence of our family's greatest sin. May God forgive what the Cranleys have done. The diary belonged to Eleanor Cranley, written between 1847 and 1851, and what she documented inside would reveal one of history's most disturbing family secrets. Let me take you back to 1640, Ireland. The Cranley family arrives from England with immense wealth. Lord Thomas Cranley purchases 5,000 acres of land and builds a massive manor. He has 3 sons, William, James, and Robert. Everything seems normal, a powerful family, respected in the community. But Lord Thomas has an obsession that will curse his bloodline for centuries. Cranley blood must remain pure. He believes his family carries superior bloodlines, that mixing with outsiders would dilute their greatness. So he makes a rule that will haunt generations. Every Cranley son must marry within the family. At first, they marry distant cousins, third cousins, fourth cousins. The community doesn't notice. This was somewhat common among aristocratic families trying to keep wealth consolidated. But with each generation, the marriages get closer and closer and closer. By 1750, the Cranleys stop inviting outsiders to their weddings entirely. When cousin marriages became something far worse. Eleanor's diary begins in 1847. She's 16 years old, excited about her upcoming 17th birthday. She writes about her 2 older brothers, Thomas and Edmund, about her younger sister, Margaret, about her parents who seem increasingly anxious. Then, on her 17th birthday, her father summons her to his study. Eleanor writes, "Father told me today of my engagement. I felt joy until he spoke the name, Thomas, my own brother Thomas. I laughed, thinking it a cruel joke. But his face remained stone. 'It is our way,' he said. 'It has always been our way.' She refuses. She screams. She threatens to run away. But her father reveals something that breaks her spirit entirely. He shows her the real family tree, hidden from the children until they come of age. And Eleanor sees the truth that had been concealed her entire life. Her father married his own sister. Her grandfather married his sister. Her great-grandfather married a first cousin who was also his half-sister from his father's affair with his aunt. The Cranley family tree doesn't branch. It tangles into itself like a nightmare knot. We are all the product of this sin, her father tells her. You cannot escape what you already are. Eleanor's diary becomes darker, more desperate. She describes the wedding. Only family members attend. No priest would perform the ceremony, so her uncle, who'd bought a false ordination, conducts it. Her mother weeps. Throughout, her brother Thomas, now her husband, won't look at her. But then Eleanor begins documenting something that explains why the family hid themselves away. She writes about the births in the family, and the horror that came with them. Her own cousin, sister, a woman who was both her cousin and her sister, through the twisted family connections, gave birth to a baby boy. Eleanor describes, the child emerged with his organs visible through translucent skin. He lived only 3 hours. They buried him in the unmarked graves behind the chapel. The 47th such burial, 47 babies, dead from severe deformities, all buried secretly on the property. Eleanor documents more. Children born deaf and blind, a nephew with bones so brittle He couldn't walk a niece whose heart was on the wrong side of her chest, multiple cases of severe mental disabilities, hemophilia so severe that minor cuts caused death. The family had a private doctor who would visit in secret. He begged them to stop, to marry outsiders, to end the bloodline curse. They fired him and found a doctor who would stay silent for money. Eleanor becomes pregnant. She, terrified, she prays every night that her child will be healthy, that God will spare an innocent baby from the sins of the family. She gives birth to a daughter, Sarah, and miraculously, Sarah appears healthy. But Eleanor notices something else. The family is shrinking. We once numbered 40 souls. In this house, she writes, now we are but 19. The children die faster than we can bear them. The bloodline is eating itself. Eleanor makes a decision, a dangerous one. She begins secretly meeting with a local priest, Father Michael O'Brien. She tells him everything. She shows him family records she's stolen from her father's locked office, birth records, death records, the hidden graveyard. Father O'Brien is horrified. He wants to report it to authorities, but Eleanor stops him. If the world discovers this, my daughter will bear the shame forever. She is innocent. But the Cranley name will mark her as cursed. Instead, they make a different plan. Eleanor will document everything in her diary. Father O'Brien will help her escape with her daughter, and they will ensure no future Cranley can continue this nightmare. Eleanor's father-in-law, who is also her uncle, discovers pages missing from the family records. He suspects Eleanor. One night he confronts her. She writes, he found my diary, he read what I had written. His face turned purple with rage. You would destroy us, he screamed. You would expose the Cranley legacy. I told him the legacy was death itself, that we were not a family but a curse. He struck me, twice across the face. Then he took my diary and locked me in my chambers. But Eleanor had been clever. The diary he found a decoy with false information, misdirection. The real diary was hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the library, the one workers would find 168 years later. Eleanor writes that she can hear the family arguing through the walls. Some want to kill her. Others suggest locking her away forever in an asylum. They have connections who would keep her there without questions. Her brother, husband Thomas, visits her cell. He weeps. Thomas told me he never wanted this. Eleanor writes that he begged father to let him leave, to marry a girl from the village he'd fallen in love with. But father threatened to disown him, to cut him off without a penny. Thomas was weak. He chose money over love, over morality, over me. I told him I could never forgive him. He left crying. I do not care. Father O'Brien bribes one of the servants, a young woman named Mary who was horrified by what she'd witnessed in the house. Mary helps Eleanor escape on the night of October 31st, 1850. Eleanor describes it in vivid detail. Mary brought me a cloak and Sarah, bundled against the cold, we crept through the servants' passage. The house was celebrating some unholy ritual in the grand hall, giving thanks for another pregnancy in the family, another chance to continue the bloodline. Their chants covered the sound of our footsteps. Father O'Brien waited with a carriage beyond the gates. We rode through the night. Sarah cried only once, and I feared we would be discovered, but the wind carried her voice away. At dawn, we reached Cork. Father O'Brien had arranged passage on a ship to America. He gave me money, his life savings, and made me promise to never return, to let the Cranley name die with those who remained. I promised. God forgive me, I was grateful to escape even as I left others behind in that house of horrors. Eleanor and Sarah boarded a ship called the Morning Star, bound for Boston. But before she left, Eleanor made one final entry. I leave this diary hidden in the place I felt most trapped, the library, where I learned to read, where I dreamed of other worlds, where I discovered the truth of my own bloodline. If it is ever found, let it serve as testament. Let it prove that we resisted, that some of us knew this was evil. To whoever reads this, the Cranley family must end. Do not let sentiment or curiosity lead you to find them. They are not victims. They are willing participants in their own damnation. Historical records show that the Cranley family vanished from public record in 1891. The manor was abandoned. Local legends in the area speak of screams heard from the property in its final years, of doctors visiting in the middle of the night, of small coffins being carried out regularly. When authorities finally investigated the property in 1893, they found the secret graveyard. Eleanor mentioned 87 graves, most of children under 5 years old, medical records documenting horrific birth defects, a family tree that forensic genealogists later called genetically impossible to sustain, signs that the house had been abandoned suddenly, meals left on tables, clothes in wardrobes, valuables left behind. The last known Cranley was Edmund Cranley, Eleanor's brother. Records show he died in 1891 at age 47 of unknown causes. He had no surviving children despite multiple marriages to family members. The Cranley bloodline ended exactly as Eleanor had hoped. Historians traced Eleanor's journey. She arrived in Boston in December 1850 with her daughter Sarah. She changed their surname to Crawford and moved to a small town in Vermont. She married a local carpenter named James Mitchell in 1852. They had 3 more children, all healthy. Eleanor lived to age 71 and died peacefully in 1902. Her daughter Sarah never knew the full truth of her origins. Eleanor had given her a false story, that her father died in an accident in Ireland and they'd emigrated for a fresh start. Sarah married a teacher, had 5 children, lived a completely normal, happy life. The Cranley curse ended with Eleanor's courage. But here's something chilling. When Eleanor died in 1902, her husband James found a locked box among her possessions. Inside was a letter addressed to Sarah, to be opened only after my death. Sarah opened it, read it, and according to her own diary discovered by her great-granddaughter in 1978, she immediately burned the letter and never spoke of it again. Whatever Eleanor confessed in that final letter, Sarah took it to her grave. Let me explain what was happening to the Cranley family genetically. Every human carries recessive genes for various genetic disorders. When you have children with someone unrelated, the chances of both parents carrying the same harmful recessive gene is low. But when siblings have children, they share approximately 50% of their DNA. The probability of both carrying the same harmful recessive genes increases dramatically. Over multiple generations of sibling marriages, the Cranleys were essentially creating genetic copies of the same DNA over and over. Every harmful mutation was amplified. Every weakness in the bloodline was magnified. Scientists who studied the Cranley case from the records that survived estimated that by Eleanor's generation, the family members shared approximately 65-70% of their DNA with each other, closer than identical twins. The result, infant mortality rate of over 60%, physical deformities in nearly every birth, cognitive disabilities, organ failures, immune system disorders, hemophilia, and blood disorders, shortened lifespans. The Cranley family was genetically doomed. They could not have continued another generation even if they'd tried. The Cranley family is not unique in history. Throughout Europe, royal families practiced similar inbreeding, though rarely to this extreme. The Habsburg dynasty famously had the Habsburg jaw, a genetic deformity from cousin marriages. The Egyptian pharaohs married siblings. Results were always the same, genetic collapse. But the Cranley case is unique because of Eleanor's diary, because she documented the horror, the reality, the human cost. Her diary is now preserved in the Irish National Archives. It's been studied by geneticists, historians, and ethicists. It serves as a warning about what happens when ideology, in this case, pure bloodline, ideology trumps science and morality. In some isolated communities today, whether religious sects, remote villages, or insular groups, cousin marriage still occurs. The Cranley diary is sometimes used in educational programs to show the real-world consequences. Eleanor's final words in her diary were, "We are not special, we are not pure, we are not superior, we are human, and humanity requires diversity to survive. May God forgive my family for forgetting this truth." The Cranley Manor was demolished in 2020. The graveyard was consecrated and properly marked. The 87 children buried there finally have recognition. Eleanor's descendants, through Sarah's line, number over 300 people today. None of them carry genetic disorders. They're teachers, doctors, artists, engineers. Living proof that Eleanor's escape saved not just herself and Sarah, but hundreds of future lives. One diary, one woman's courage, changed everything. If this story shocked you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more dark history that's been buried and forgotten. And comment below, should Eleanor's full diary be published for the public to read, or should some secrets stay buried? Next video, I'm covering the Donnelly family murders. An entire family wiped out in one night, and the town that protected the killers for 100 years. Thanks for watching, and remember, the darkest secrets always find their way into the light.